questions this evening. So if you have a question, I'll be very happy to try to answer your question. Just do what my two friends have done at the front here, raise a hand, and I'll come to you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you spoke very eloquently about Minister Farrakhan's influence in your life. However, there is this perception that he has made anti-Semitic remarks. I mean, there is even a song about it in America. I mean, tell me, do you simply deny he ever made these remarks?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And I think he has made remarks that could be interpreted as anti-Semitic, depending on your viewpoint. But what I'm saying is that in the pure sense of that term, anti-Semitic, he certainly is not. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan hates the concept or the idea of anti-Semitism. Because what it comes down to is actually just being against somebody on the basis of their religion. I mean, why would you... That would be irreligious, and as Muslims we would be disallowed to do something like that. You cannot be against another person, especially if they're mentioning God. Any house of God, a synagogue, a mosque, church, we as Muslims we must respect that. So Minister Farrakhan, if he was against Jewish people for the sake of them being Jewish, we would be in absolute opposition to God. So Minister Farrakhan certainly is not that. However, he has said things in terms of dealing with the Jewish involvement in the slave trade, where, for instance, the Nation of Islam, we have a research body, and what they did was that they researched Jewish scholars. And many Jewish scholars have documented the Jewish involvement in the slave trade, in that they financed many of the slave ships, etc., etc. And all the Nation of Islam did was to quote these scholars and put it into a book entitled The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews. And on the basis of that, they have accused the Honorable Louis Farrakhan of being an anti-Semite. But we didn't say nothing of our own. We simply quoted the Jewish scholars. And what the Honorable Louis Farrakhan has said is, if the Jews who are so vociferous against him, if they will condemn those Jewish scholars, then he would then withdraw the book. If they're prepared to condemn the Jewish scholars who we have quoted in the book, then we would withdraw the book. But they're not prepared to do that. But we would say to you, in all honesty, that the Honorable Louis Farrakhan certainly is not an anti-Semite and does not believe in such a thing, because that would be contrary to everything that we believe in, which is to respect all religious people in particular and people in general. So he's not, we would disagree that he's that. Yes, sir. No? Okay. Yes, sir.
Do you believe that the Jews have a right to occupy Israel?
That's a very good question. The question is, do we believe that the Jews have a right to occupy Israel? And the answer, very simply, is no. We don't believe in that right, especially when that right means that the Palestinians are to be put off into little encampments, or basically taken out of their own land and destroyed as a human reality. We don't believe that anyone has the right to destroy another people in order to establish themselves. And in 1948, when England and America and Germany and France and all of the Allied powers got together and put or situated or established Israel, as it's known today, in that region, that was really a crime against humanity. And we cannot justify that. And if you look at what's happened over the years, and I mean, you know, we see the news and we see the manner in which the Palestinians are depicted. They have stones, and the Israelis have the most sophisticated weaponry of the day, which are supplied to them by America and other nations. And, you know, we find it very sad that the way these things are reported, almost like it's a fair fight, and that, you know, this is two warring factions, when in reality the Palestinians have been totally disenfranchised. They've been removed from their own land. They've been denied human rights in their own homeland. And as a result of that, Israel has been established. And so we could never countenance that type of establishment of a nation. We believe that the Jewish people have a right to have a land of their own and have a right to live in a place in peace and security, but not at the expense of a whole segment of the population, namely the Palestinians. We would disagree with that occupation. Yes, sir.
You just said in the part of that question something about taking down one group of people to build up another.
Yes.
George, how do you agree what's going on in Zimbabwe?
Well, because, and it's a good question, you know, how can we say that and at the same time say that we agree with what's happening in Zimbabwe? The reason why we can agree with what's happening in Zimbabwe is because, you know, whenever you have a problem, if you really want to solve the problem, always go to the root of the problem. Because if you start at the branch of a problem, you're never going to effectively relieve that problem. For instance, when you get a toothache, you got a problem with your tooth or whatever, you can get some Wrigley's chewing gum, stuff it in a hole for a little while, gives you temporary relief. But if you want to solve the problem, go to the dentist, let him drill into the root, get rid of the root problem, then you no longer have a problem with that tooth. The root problem in Zimbabwe is the original illegal occupation of the land by the white settlers. And as long as we try to get away from that reality, we will never solve the problem. Now there's an approach towards solving some of the problems in Northern Ireland. Why? Because they're dealing with some of the root causes. And as long as they're prepared to change some of the root causes, which is England, Britain, going into Ireland, creating 6 counties and doing a lot of mayhem over there with the Irish people, divide and rule, one lot Protestant, the other lot Catholic and whatever, and keeping that thing going and ruling from Westminster, as long as that was the status quo, then you're going to have terrorism, you're going to have problems, you're going to have people dying, you're going to have war. But when you go to the root now, then that is the real way to solve it. And so that's why Zimbabwe is different to the situation that was raised by the first questioner over there. Yes, sir?
Do you not think that your views on Minister Farrakhan have elevated to almost godlike status within the Nation of Islam?
The question, do we not think that our views have elevated the Honorable Louis Farrakhan to almost godlike status within the Nation of Islam? Yes, there is a danger of that. And the Honorable Louis Farrakhan is constantly warning us, the believers, the followers, about that we don't make him a God besides God, and that we don't worship him. And one of the good ways in which he points this out to us is, for instance, the history of Jesus. Because this, you know, they claim that England is a Christian country. And so if that's the case, then that means that Jesus is the premier man that we worship and follow. But you see, Jesus never ever said to the people, worship me. Jesus said, not my will, but thy will be done. Jesus taught the people to bow down to the Father. When the people came to Jesus, they said, Lord, how do we pray, Master? He said, why callest thou me Master? Why callest thou me good? He was always rebuking the people and trying to make the people to see him as yet another brother, as yet another man. But what's happened now is that Jesus has been elevated to God's status when he in fact never elevated himself in such a way. He always pointed the people to the Father. And the same thing with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He continuously points us to God. And he teaches us to worship no one and nothing but God. But at the same time, we know that some of us, in every society, in every group, in every walk of life, you will have some who are weak in their understanding. And the weaker ones of us, I'm sure that some of us will have Minister Farrakhan like he's a god. But in truth and reality, believe me, despite everything I've said here tonight, Minister Farrakhan is my brother. And we don't worship him because that would be folly and that would be against our religion. And so your point is well taken, but I can assure you that the more mature members of the Nation of Islam see the Honorable Louis Farrakhan in the proper context of who he is. He's a leader, teacher and guide for us, but he's certainly not God, and we don't want to make that mistake, because what happened with black people in the past as well is that that's what we would do. We'd make the leader so huge and so great that if he died, or as soon as he went, the whole movement is destroyed, because it was a cult thing. It was built on a cult figure, and we're certainly not making that mistake with the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Yes, sir.
According to Elijah Muhammad, who is responsible for the division between whites and blacks?
Sorry, say that again, please.
According to the Honourable Elijah Muhammad, who is responsible for the division between whites and blacks?
Who is responsible for the division between whites and blacks? Well, according to the Honourable Elijah Muhammad, that's the question. Who is responsible for the division between whites and blacks? According to the Honourable Elijah Muhammad, that responsibility lies with God. It was Allah. And if you read the Holy Quran, Allah says in the Holy Quran, I made you of different hues and colours, that you may know one another. You see, the way we see these things sometimes is all wrong. You know, when you see a rose garden, imagine you had a rose garden. That gentleman over there has got a red rose in his lapel. Imagine that all that there ever were just red roses. After a while, it get a bit boring after a while. So there you have a red rose, you have a white rose, you have a pink one, you have a yellow one. And when you see a rose garden with a profusion of color, it makes the thing interesting. And it doesn't mean that the red rose is better than the white one or any others, but they're all there to complement one another, just like the male and the female. The male and the female are to complement one another, work with one another, help one another to procreate family, etc., etc. The problem arises when the white rose or the white members of the human family decided that they were better on the basis of their color, and then went around destroying and subjugating all the other colors. And that's what happened. But Allah was the one who allowed color in the first place in order that we might get to know one another and in order that we might celebrate our differences. But one group in particular, namely the white race, took it onto another level in terms of white supremacy, and then went around the planet systematically destroying, subjugating, subjecting all of the darker people of the earth under colonialism and slavery and all the rest of it. And but the origin of it, if we want to blame anybody, then the buck would have to stop with God, because he was the one who allowed and originated color in the first place. But now the divisions which have come from that are based on our own, as I explained earlier on, the good and the bad within, and some people allowing the propensity towards evil to dominate their lives, and so they do more evil than good. And the good, evil has more or less dominated the planet for the last 6,000 years, but we're living in a time now when that process is to be reversed, and good is once again to come to the fore, good is once again to come to the top, and more amicable relations between human beings, as opposed to what's gone before, which was basically domination on the basis of might being right, and Britannia ruled the waves, etc., etc. Yes, sir.
I'm actually a Muslim myself.
Yes, sir.
And I've been brought up in Islam. Now the Quran actually teaches that all things on earth have been created by God. Yeah, they're all the products of a creation, of a creator who is God, Allah. Yeah?
Yes.
Now I've heard something. I'm not sure whether it's true, and if it's not, then I apologize. But I heard, from somewhere that the Nation of Islam classified the white man as a Satan. Now I can't imagine, as a Muslim, I can't imagine how that makes sense.
Yes.
If you can clarify that for me.
Okay. Well, the point is this. You know, Hitler did what he did. Go and speak to any self-respecting Jew. Ask them how they see Hitler. He is Satan himself. He's a devil. You see, what does devil mean? Devil, see, if we get emotional about devil, then devil is a nickname. But devil is actually mathematics. Devil is a devaluer. That's one way of defining a devil. A devil is a devaluer. In other words, here's something valuable. I come along, touch it, devalue it. So, whether we appreciate it or not, black people were valuable in the eyes of Allah. But when Caucasians came to us, they touched us and devalued us. And they made themselves devils by their works. See, Allah is very clear in the Holy Quran. He talks from beginning to end in the Holy Quran about shaitan, the devil, the good, the evil, those who are for Jannah, heaven, those who are for the fire, those who are for the pit. I mean, this is throughout the Holy Quran. Allah does not lump everybody in together and say everybody's wonderful. He clearly defines devil, good, evil, hypocrites, and all the rest. And so we've got to be very clear about this. When we say that in the Nation of Islam about the white man, it's not based on some rhetoric or just wanting to call him names. It's based on what we've experienced, our history, what's been done to us. And so, what we would ask is, if that's not the case, then we want to see the angelic ones. We want to see the ones who are going to do good. We want to see the ones who are going to do good to black people. Because even to this day, the Lawrence family can still not get justice. See, Jill Dando's killer has just been caught, presumably. We'll await the trial. But the fact of the matter is that they still cannot achieve justice. I can name you people who have died in police custody. I went into one of the police stations myself, into the cell recently, where they said that Marlon Downs, a 20-year-old black boy in Harlesden, they said he hung himself with his shoelaces. I went into the police cell and looked at the place where they said he hung himself. Impossible. But this is the kind of reality that we face today as black people still. And so people who do that, we say they are devil. No mistake about it. We know the devil. And the Holy Quran teaches you that the devil is your open enemy. See, for those people who are looking for a devil with 2 horns and a pitchfork and red skin under the ground, well, that's their fairy tale. But the devil is your open enemy. In other words, he's in your face every day, but you won't necessarily recognize it. But just to put that into context as well, as I said, devil is that evil that's in every one of us. And we can be godlike or we can be like the devil. But it's your choice. And what we've experienced with Caucasian people over the years is more devil than God. Most definitely, that's what we've experienced, because anyone who would destroy us in the manner in which we were destroyed. There's an article, I don't know if we've got it with us, about lynching. When you see, white people would have parties at a lynching of black people. Cut off our penis and cut off our fingers and our toes and our private parts and pass them around as souvenirs and keep them at home on the mantel shelf as a souvenir, as a token of their good day's work after they killed our people. That's a devil. That's not a human being. That's not somebody that you can love. That's somebody who deserves condemnation and hatred. Yes, sir.
Yes, I quote from 3 points in your speech, and you'll excuse me if I don't get you verbatim. 1, if the Honourable Minister Farrakhan, told me to shoot all white people tomorrow, I would do so. 2, in discipline we are like an army. 3, think for yourself, be an individual. Have you done the thinking?
You're saying that there's a dichotomy there, there's a contradiction.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Well, I know, but he's smart, see? Because he knows. No, he's a smart man, because he said, perhaps. That's right. Because yes, on the surface, statements like that, well, there you go, then it's Hitler again, it's robotic, it's anything that the leader says you do. No, it's not like that. It's not like that. You see, what it is, it's just whether or not you have faith and belief in that which is good and that which you love. It's like, for instance, I shouldn't imagine you're married yet, but maybe one day you'll get married. And when you marry and you love your wife, and she is precious to you, and you have longevity together in that maybe you've been together for 5, 10 years, whatever. And then someone comes to you and says some ugly thing about your wife. Oh, you never guess what she was doing, or blah, 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 whatever. That you would first give your wife the benefit of the doubt, rather than just be quick to believe that slander. Jump all over your wife in accusations, and instead of saying, no, this is not the woman I know. Give her the benefit of the doubt and at least see for yourself. The same thing is what applies with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Minister Farrakhan would never tell us to go and kill white people. That's the point. That's why I said an extreme hypothetical. I'm just trying to show you how obedient we would be to Minister Farrakhan. But we know that Minister Farrakhan would never take us down that road. Because that's not the man's character, that's not his nature, that's not part of the agenda of the Nation of Islam. But it's just to demonstrate that we love this man so much because this man is a good man. He is a truthful man. He is an honest man. He is a man who believes and loves humanity. Minister Farrakhan, on hearing that you would suffer an injury, would feel hurt. I don't have to guess at this, sir. I'm telling you, Minister Farrakhan loves humanity. He has a heart for human beings. But when we hear the type of evil which is said about Minister Farrakhan, so then we have to show you now, man, if you really think that Minister Farrakhan is evil, I'm trying to show you, if he was an evil man, then you know the fruit by the tree. Evil produces evil. Simple. I used to be evil. I'm trying to be good now because of Minister Farrakhan. So Minister Farrakhan is not going to produce good if he himself is evil. Minister Farrakhan teaches us like this. He says that you can have a man giving a lecture, and you can have two men giving a lecture, or you can have two audiences. It makes no difference. But the difference, he says that the man giving the lecture can give a lecture to an audience, and the audience can go away bitter, twisted, and another man can give a lecture to the same audience. They can go away feeling elated and warm and glowing and kind of floating around, feeling good about themselves. And he said the only difference that has to be between those two lecturers is that one of them had a disease in the heart, had something wrong with him. And he doesn't have to manifest it necessarily in his speech overtly, but because there's something in there, it will transfer to the people. And so when you go before people, for instance, you have to make sure, you have to know what's your motivation. For instance, like myself coming before you today, what's my motivation? It could be because I know, as an actual fact, that God has blessed me with a degree of articulation. So this could be pure vanity. Oh, let me go to Eton and show off in front of all of those people. Or is the aim and purpose really that I want you to understand something about the Nation of Islam that I want you to understand in order that it might help you? Or is it for the sake of vanity? That's the point I'm trying to make. So Minister Farrakhan, we believe, is not a vain man. We believe he's a man who does things for the best motivation for humanity. And so that's what we mean. And we certainly have analyzed. We certainly are not follow order functionaries that just obey any old crazy instruction. Like I think they said Shaka Zulu told his troops to march over the ravine and they all did it. Well, I wouldn't have been one of those. I would have been one of the deserters in Shaka Zulu's army, because I would have wanted to go and fight the enemy rather than jump over the cliff. Yes, sir.
Not all white men are perfect, and not all black men are perfect. Do you agree that by classifying white men in general as the devil, you're inciting racial hatred and violence?
No, I would disagree with that, because what we've found in our experience is that white society as a whole has been that way. And wherever we find white people on the planet, we find the same pattern of behavior. That's why, for instance, you won't find a gun with a black man's name on it. You won't find a nuclear weapon with a black man's name on it. Wherever you find Caucasian people on the planet, that's where the nuclear weapons are, that's where the guns are, that's where all of the manufacture of these weapons of mass destruction come from. Now, you know, you have to ask yourself, for instance, you see some people ask us, because we speak every week in Hyde Park, and we get questioned down there, and people say to us, well, what about the war in Rwanda? But all black people killing black people. What about the Tutsis and the Hutus and all? But we say, hold on a minute, but look at these black people who are doing this. They're decrepit, they haven't got money, they're poor, but then you find that they've got a brand new rocket launcher in their hand, made in Israel. They've got Uzi submachine guns, or they've got this or that, and all of these weapons are coming from white people in white countries. And so you have to ask yourself, why? Who's supplying this? Who's pushing this? And so that's what we mean. Now understand this though. We know that there are good white people. We know this. But what we say is that, in truth, they're so rare. We don't waste time trying to find good white people. You know, it's like, for instance, if my son was to be bitten by a snake, you know, and then it's an adder, because I think that's a poisonous snake in this country. And then I'm going to educate my child now to look out for adders. In the future, look out for adders. No.
All snakes.
I just tell him, look out for all snakes.
Am I a devil?
No. I can't say that about you as an individual. I don't know you. You must know yourself. You must know who you are. I have not seen your actions. You could say to me tonight, I'm very saintly, but your actions speak louder than your words. And so many people will claim this and claim that, but we don't know what they're manifesting until we see their actions. So I can't judge you as an individual. However, what we're taught is that your nature, you have a leaning or a propensity towards evil. which makes you, your race, your people, a race of devils. And we can bear this out, and we can prove this in no limit of time based on the history and based on what's happening today, and we know what they plan to do in the future. I'm on a list for elimination. Members of the Nation of Islam today, they plan to do some evil to us because we are regarded as subversive and troublemakers and people who must be dealt with. But we quote the scripture, though we walk in the valley of the shadow of death, we fear no evil. Because it's just evil. Because all we're trying to do is do good for ourselves and good for humanity, and trying to equalize ourselves, bring ourselves up from the mud of civilization which white people placed us in the first place. So we don't personalize it. I'm not going to stand here and call you as an individual a devil. No, that's for you to determine who and what you are as an individual. Okay. I've just been told one last question, so I'd really like to take the lady at the front because we haven't heard from any ladies. Okay. I know he's had his hand up for a long time. Maybe we'll just sneak you in at the end, but let's take the question.
I was just curious to know what role women have in your organisation. Equal status, equal opportunity. There are no women here.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The question is, what role does the women have in the Nation of Islam? Is there equal status, equal opportunities, etc.? The question is that the women in the Nation of Islam outnumber the men. We have more women than men in the Nation of Islam, here and in North America, wherever you find us. The women in the Nation of Islam, they don't walk around in those tent things, like looking like a Dalek. You won't find that in the Holy Quran. Allah doesn't say that the woman is to be covered up like she is to be ashamed of herself. That's men imposing their own misogyny on women. And we disagree with that. The woman and the man, in the Holy Quran, we are taught to dress modestly. Both male and female are to do that. We are to dress modestly, not to go, this suit that I'm wearing is cut in a particular way, deliberately, that it doesn't show my private parts. Because Allah, in His infinite wisdom, put the private parts of the human being in private places. But some of these freakish designers in Paris and London and Milan and other places, they specifically design the clothes to bring the private parts into the public arena. So the bra now pushes up and out. Hello, boys, from the big poster on the thing. And then you wonder why women are stalked and treated like pieces of meat, because they've been reduced to pieces of meat. And so in the Nation of Islam, the women dress modestly, the men dress modestly. The women are very, very industrious in the Nation of Islam. It was women, for instance, who were the backbone of the Million Man March. If it wasn't for the women, then the Million Man March would never have happened. It would have been an impossibility. Just on my way up, Brother Andrew was quoting to me from one of our greatest teachers in the Nation of Islam, who is a woman. Her name is Sister Minister Ava Muhammad. She's a minister over men in the mosque. You won't find in many Islamic circles women who are the equivalent of imams in a mosque. In the Nation of Islam, you will find that. The woman can do whatever a man can do in the Nation of Islam. Oftentimes in the Nation of Islam, you'll find that when we have our businesses, shops, etc., the women are the ones who are really the ones who are running these things. We have travel agents and women run that, and things of that nature. So the women very much are an integral part of the Nation of Islam. However, we do have the standard roles of male and female, which we adhere to quite vigorously in the Nation of Islam, in that the woman is the first teacher of the child. She is the nurturer. She has those feminine qualities which, as men, most of us are lacking. And so we do have those very conventional roles where we believe that the man should be the one who really goes out, makes the money, and if there's war, then the man should go and fight. We don't believe in putting our women on the front line, even though we know that some of our women are better fighters than our men throughout history. But the point is that there is no discrimination against our women in the Nation of Islam. We believe that the male and the female are to work together and complement one another, and that's the way Allah designed it, that we procreate family, and we believe that family is the cornerstone of nation, and that's what happens in the Nation of Islam essentially with the women. She's not here tonight, we do apologise because we don't regard this as a hostile environment, but in truth we haven't been to Eton before, and whenever we're going into a place where we haven't been before, we're very reluctant to bring our women because we don't know what to expect. And as men, we got broad shoulders. We can take whatever you want to dish out to us, but we get very, very very touchy when it comes to our women, and we wouldn't want our women to be insulted by anybody. And we don't know what to expect. We didn't know whether there was going to be an ambush. You know, some of the Etonians were going to start hurling abuse, you black things and whatever. We can take that. But we wouldn't subject our women to that. When we know the environment is a good environment and a safe environment, then you see our women more so. But we're very, very particular about where they go. And that doesn't mean now, you know, it sounds like, well, we're kind of holding. No. It's not like that. It's not like that. Our women choose where they go. But at the same time, we do have a structure within the Nation of Islam, and we all adhere to it. We don't, you know, there's no fighting between the male and females, or I'm being oppressed and held down. No, we accept our roles because we've been taught today by Allah about our roles and how we should be if we're going to be successful. Every other nation on the planet has it like that, and the reason why black people are so unsuccessful is because we've lost our family structure, where there's no longer a man who's the head of the house. There's no longer a family structure where you have children who respect both mother and father. Now we have single parent families. Most of our sisters are bringing up children on their own. The men are in the bookie shop or building spliffs on the street corners. And we intend to end all of that nonsense and bring back a strong black family, which will be the cornerstone of our nation into the 21st century and beyond. So that's really it. I mean, apart from I'm going to break the rules slightly, just to see very quickly what this question was, and then we end it for tonight. Yes, sir.
Yeah, going back to a previous question, don't the Jews believe that they were displaced from their homeland?
Yes, I do believe that they do believe this, and that that is something that is taught among and within Jewish circles. However, we believe that they're mistaken when they see themselves as being the chosen people of God, so to speak. If you are the chosen people of God, then that means that you have a covenant with God, and that means you must be godlike, and that means that you must be carrying out the statutes of God. That doesn't mean that you be doing the type of things that we see taking place in Israel today. That's not godlike behavior. That's not in keeping with a chosen people of God. And again, when we look at black people who are very much like sheep, who are very much victims all over this earth, we really see ourselves in those scripture as opposed to Jews, etc. So we believe that they're mistaken. We believe that we have a theological argument with the Jews, and we think that that's how it should be conducted. If they believe that we're wrong in interpreting the scripture, then they should argue with us on those things, but don't call us anti-Semitic, because we believe that we are the people who are spoken of in the scripture, and in fact it's not them. That's a theological difference, a theological argument. Let's argue about it in the best manner, but don't accuse us of anti-Semitism and hatred because we disagree with that you're not the people that you claim to be, and we are in fact those people. Thank you very much for your question. Thank you.
Of the Nation of Islam for coming to speak, clearing away some of the people's assumptions about their organisation, but also, even if we don't agree with what they have to say, to hopefully provoke a great debate. So thank you very much.